Hello and welcome to Radio Peace Wealth Talk. My name is Pete Williams, the host of the program where we talk about all things wealth. This episode is part of a series where I take a drill down on some very specific matters that come up. Today I want to highlight a term that might be confusing, that if you've heard it, you may well wonder what it is. We're talking about the pour-over will. What is a pour-over will? Well, a pour-over will is a last will and testament that transfers assets not otherwise in a trust, and it pours them into the trust. So what do we mean by that? Well, let's back up. People create a revocable living trust, often as a centerpiece of their estate plan. So they write a trust up and they intend for that trust to control assets during their life, upon incapacity, and ultimately at death. And so it controls inheritance of property that is owned by the trust. And the creator of the trust, or the settlor or trustor, they immediately start transferring assets into the name of the trust. So they actually change title. The trust only controls assets in the trust. We create a revocable living trust, and we have assets in the name of John Jones, just as an individual. And what John does once he creates his trust is he retitles the name of that bank account to John Jones, trustee of the John Jones Trust, dated January 1st, 2020. By the way, that's all made up. And I apologize to all the John Jones out there using a generic name. I could even use mine, quite frankly. Now the account will be controlled by the terms of the trust. It will be inherited in accordance with the terms of the trust. Likewise, John Jones may have some real estate in his own name. He creates a trust. The first thing he does after creating that trust is he wants to deed that property from himself to himself as trustee of his trust. Let's just say that John never gets around to transferring assets to trust. Maybe he opened up a new bank account someplace and he just, out of convenience, put it in his own name and he was going to transfer it to trust. Or maybe he tried to transfer an asset, but it had done it incorrectly. A very common fact scenario is where there is something wrong with a deed to real estate. There was an intention to transfer real estate to the trust, but it either was never done, or maybe the deed was not properly notarized. So this is where the pour-over will comes in. Somebody dies, and there are assets not registered to the trust, but the intention was to have them in the trust. Now, I want to point out one thing. A pour-over will normally is a last will and testament, so it revokes all prior wills. Normally, the inheritance scheme in the prior will is the same as the inheritance scheme in the living trust, but not always. When people get around to creating a trust, sometimes they rethink their inheritance instructions. It may be because of a subsequent marriage. It may be because of death of a beneficiary in the old will. It just may be that they want to change the terms of inheritance. So what they do, one of the first statements in a pour-over will is, I revoke all wills and codicils that I had previously made. Side note, codicil is an amendment to a will. Not a complete redo. It's a side amendment. And then somewhere in that document, he says, I give the entire residue of my estate to the trustees then in office under that trust designated as the John Jones Trust, established January 1st, 2020. So if there are any assets outside of the trust when John dies, we've got this pour-over will to put them into the trust, which is where he likely intended them to be anyway. And yes, there will be a probate if the assets are of a certain character and of a certain size. Now, I should mention here that there may be assets outside of trust for which the settlor testator wanted to go in a different direction than what the trust creates. So there may be assets with beneficiary designation or joint tenancy are not subject to the pour over will. All right, so that's a pour over will. In summary, it is simply a will that says, hey, if I've missed any assets and they're outside of trust when I die, put them in the trust after I die. Such a will is submitted to the probate court. The executor goes in, gets an order, goes out and gets those assets, and then hands them over to the trustee of the trust. Assets are then handled in accordance with the new trust. Any prior wills are revoked and are of no use. All right. I hope to follow up shortly with some other terms of art that are included in estate planning and investment planning, and do little micro segments like this. So stay tuned. Thank you very much.